46 Battle. Uhak had no choice but to accept the command of the Major General and turned back to chase the two MiG-29Bs. He carefully checked the fuel situation. The auxiliary fuel tank was exhausted, so he switched the fuel switch to the wing fuel tank, and then through the auxiliary fuel tank. The wingman was in slightly better condition, with several hundred liters of fuel remaining in the drop tank. Griffin, listen, take their right flank, turn on the radar and drive them over to me. Sammy began to take command of the situation directly and ambitiously. Griffin understands, but they're loaded with weapons. It's best not to be aggressive without medium-range ammunition. Uhak warned his old superiors out of good intentions. Although Sammy has never been popular, he is still the most valuable top pilot of the Pakistan Air Force. Thank you for reminding me that there is only one fighter in the Indian Air Force that can make me a little worried, and it's not these MiG-29s. 20 kilometers away, Captain Roll began to be in a dilemma. After turning to lose the F-16 in front, the battlefield information gave him it's close to zero, which is a consequence of his going deep into the enemy's realm. Now he only knows that there is a radiation source in the northwest that has never been interrupted. It must be an early warning aircraft. In this way, other Pakistani fighter jets can find him without using radar. Therefore, it is not feasible to confirm the position of the enemy plane through the radiation source. How many enemy planes are in other directions and where? He didn't even know it. The only thing he knew was that it would be more dangerous to return to the original road, because the number 3 wingman was shot down from the rear, which shows that the enemy's conspiracy was to cut off the retreat. Now, Roll felt the only way was to call for support. Call headquarters, I need Lion support. Captain Trident, we can't see you now. I'm 150 kilometers west of Halwara, and you'll see me soon. There are quite a few enemies. Machine chase. There are 2 fighter jets in Squadron 31 that are on duty and can take off soon. You can move closer to us. It is difficult for the captain to imagine that the air defense facilities in Punjab province are so weak, even because of the small anti-radiation radar dropped by the F-16. The ground navigation and anti-aircraft fire were completely out of control, and he now counted on the Su-30 MKI of the 31st Lion Squadron to launch in time to search this dangerous airspace with phased array radar. There's always been a rumor among Indian pilots, don't expect an AWACS, it's definitely not there when you need it. At 4 o'clock, the F-16's radar search was quickly reflected on Roll's RWS. It seemed that the enemy had turned back. Although Roll knew very well that there were no medium-range bombs on the F-16, but because he couldn't measure the distance of the enemy plane, he really had no idea. He could have been heading south for a while, throwing off the bandit, and then turning east, but it looked like it was too late. The fuel warning light also came on at this time, and the captain made a wrong decision. He ditched the auxiliary fuel tank and turned directly east, flying blankly towards Sammy's formation. The information transmitted by Sammy through the data link completely grasped this new trend. He knew that the opportunity was coming. Of course, the enemy would be wary of his direction, but after all, there was no other choice. Captain Black Spider, the enemy plane is passing in front of you. I suggest you slow down and don't fall in front of him. Sammy ignored the warning of the early warning aircraft. The target position was clear and he knew what to do. If there are medium-range rounds, it can be fired now, but if not, it will only take a little more trouble. Abbas, you climb to a high altitude to prevent them from escaping by climbing, and the rest of the planes follow me, turning and cutting to the inside of the turn of the enemy plane. Keep your eyes open, don't let them see us first. The colonel said. He still sacrificed the magic weapon of sneak attack. At the remote Harwara airport in India, after 2 Su-30 MKIs were scrambled into the air, they immediately accelerated to the west and turned on the radar to search due west. The pilot was startled by the radar display. 120 kilometers away, many enemy planes were flying. flanking two MiG-29s from several directions. The Su-30 pilot immediately informed the ground command, but it was a little late. The two MiG-29s had already fallen into a one-sided fight with the three Thunderbolts in the dominant position, and both of them were passive. As soon as the Su-30 took off, Sammy already knew that they were now in the east, but the colonel didn't pay much attention to the surrounding situation when he attacked, especially since these enemy planes were far away, there was no threat, and within a minute, the battle situation here was over. There will be a difference. He now had a firm hold on the enemy's leader, forcing him to disperse from his wingman. As expected, the MiG-29 tried to climb out of the pursuit by common sense, but fortunately, Abbas was waiting for him in higher airspace. Sammy lost his wingman to his two wingmen to pursue, because the wingman didn't look tough enough and kept swinging left and right in vain. This is the most taboo move in air combat. Every extra move in air combat means loss of altitude or speed, so good pilots never move. The performance of the MiG leader was much better. After he was bitten, he was pulled up almost vertically, and was always free above the colonel's glass canopy. In the area above the upper limit of the scan, on the HUD, the speed vector logo was thrown to the bottom of the HUD. Both aircraft were trying to climb, and the instantaneous G value was close to 8. Abbas stopped him. Sammy doesn't know where Abbas is now. He doesn't have time to look down at the HDD. In principle, he should be in the 6 o'clock direction and can bar in front of the MiG-29. The colonel was impressed by the maneuverability of this enemy plane with two R-27s. He is now beginning to worry that the plane will slip through his fingers. Abbas Thunderbolt occupied a favorable head-on position at this time. He was condescending and used the radar aperture to firmly cover the top of the somersault. The MiG-29, which was slowing down in speed, decisively launched two PL-5E missiles. But the stubborn enemy pilot was very focused. He must have seen the fire of the missiles, leveled the plane with a roll, and quickly began to hover and dive. Sammy saw a white smoke of tracer bullets, two missiles flying towards himself like a fly without a head. He had to turn sharply to one side. This 9G maneuver made him almost lose his target. Watching the two missiles fly away from him, Sammy realigned the nose of the enemy plane, and the radar quickly caught the target, but the MiG-29 had already accelerated to an astonishing 700 miles per hour with a little time difference. km/h. The Indian pilot didn't waste a second of unnecessary action. He turned on the afterburner while fully pressing the nose of the aircraft, released several sets of chaff, and then shot two extra pieces towards the ground. R-27 looks extremely sophisticated. Sammy pushed the throttle valve to the end. At this time, the enemy plane flexibly rolled 90 degrees to one side, but did not turn. Maybe he flew sideways to observe the battlefield on one side. Sammy fired a missile 2 kilometers away, but the enemy pilot, who had been watching the rear, made another effective evasion in time to get rid of the old missile, which was difficult to distinguish between the tracer and the aircraft's tail vent. However, this evasion caused Sammy to shorten the distance between the two aircraft to about 1 kilometer. The colonel simply chose the cannon mode. He knew that against such a more flexible but relatively large aircraft, the cannon mode aimed at the radar may be used. It worked wonders, especially when he found that the Indian pilot didn't maneuver much in the left and right directions.